Do you find social media frustrating though? Because it's like, I feel like especially as TikTok has continued to get, more popularity the last few years, it's like whoever is yelling the loudest and whoever is yelling the most clickbaity, outrageous thing wins. And I think that's the hardest part for like good coaches is it's like the sexy stuff is usually not the stuff that actually like moves the needle or, it's maybe the 1% to pay attention to rather than, the 98 or 99% to pay attention to. And so it's like with all of the research that y'all share and review and stuff like that, do you get frustrated at times? Because you're almost yelling with this tiny microphone. And it's like, hey, but here's science and this is actually what's happening. But you have all these people out here, preaching how, you should be doing ice baths every day. And hey, you need to be, don't do cardio. It's going to kill your gains. And do you feel like you're like fighting a losing fight ever or just like get frustrated with social media?
I used to. Most of the time I don't anymore. And one of the realizations I think that was very helpful to me when there would be something where kind of the chatter on social media conflicted very strongly with the research or to be more like to have more intellectual humility, at least my understanding of the research. It used to really get under my skin because I was like, these people are wrong, and that's like a really bad thing because like I'm so deep into this stuff and it matters to me so deeply that it feels like a transgression of something that is like actually really big and important, and that it's that it's like a bad thing, and I need to be concerned about it, I guess. But as more and more time has gone on, like I care less and less because with a bit more age and experience and just perspective on everything, I've come to realize like most of it like the stakes are so low if someone's wrong that like who cares? Like a current topic of a lot of dispute online is like how close to failure do you need to train to maximize muscle growth?
Oh, we just been talking about this with Brian. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and some people are like, like you're going to get like huge like marginal benefits from going to failure, and other people are like, no, stopping a couple reps shy is fine. Like you don't need to go all the way to failure. I don't know. Like I have my opinions on the topic and my understanding of the research, but it's also like the people I disagree with, like if they're wrong, like who fucking cares, I guess, because no one is saying that either of those things is bad. Like let's say that it is ideal to stop 2 reps shy of failure, but someone's saying like, nah, like you got to go to failure. Like those last 2 reps are really important. And they convince a lot of people of that fact. Who cares? Like, because no one,
right?
no one is looking at that and saying like, 2 reps shy of failure, that's where you get all the gains. And if you push all the way to failure, you're not going to grow at all. And it's going to be terrible. Like we're talking about like relatively small marginal differences between the two. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter who's right or wrong. Like if people go down one road or go down the other, they're probably going to make decent gains regardless. So like it's something that acutely feels very important because it's something you spend a lot of time reading about, you spend a lot of time learning about. You might have like deeply held opinions on those topics, but the cost of you being wrong or someone else being wrong is such a trivial cost that I can take a step back and be like, I think there are a lot of people wrong about this on the internet, but like if they're wrong, it doesn't matter. Like ultimately at the end of the day. So like the things that do get under my skin are things that I think are like legitimately dangerous, I guess. There's a class of people online that it's mostly like carnivore folks who are just like, like vegetables are poison and saturated fat is actually really good for you. So you should try to consume a bunch of it. And like, that's not going to put anyone in the ground today. But like, I know the data on that. Like that's going to have a measurable impact on the number of like person years their audience is going to live. I think that's like bad and dangerous, and stuff like that does get me fired up. Like it does get under my skin because there are real stakes. Like if you're very wrong on one of those topics and you convince a lot of people, Yeah, like they might live like 5 years less than they would have otherwise. Like that's tragic. Like that sucks. If people are doing like linear periodization instead of undulating, like they both work, like who cares? So most of the actual like lifting disagreements uh, don't bother me nearly as much as they used to.
I think it's just such a weird dance as a coach because it's like you're trying to direct your clients and your people of like, hey, these are the things to pay attention to and these are the things that are important. Well, what if we just did both of it and we weren't super extreme about either one? And it's just so hard, right? Because again, it's the microphones are loud on social media these days.
I think too, like it's just people's obsession with being optimal. Like you want to be as optimal as possible. And if you're not doing everything perfectly ideal, then you're going to be missing out on somehow.
Yeah. So there are two other dynamics here that I think are important. One is I think that a lot of people deal with information overload and they respond to what they're told. And if you're someone creating content on social media, you need to get attention on that content. And if you are going to write about a particular topic and what you're actually going to say is the same regardless, but you have a choice to frame it as, hey, if you do this thing, it might make a marginal impact on the gains you see, versus like here's this trick they don't want you to know, and you're leaving so much progress on the table. You need to consume this content. It's very important. People are going to click on the second one, even if the first one is probably a more accurate representation of what's actually going on. And so, yeah, like most people creating content are like overselling almost everything, which puts the information consumer in a place where they're just like, holy shit, there's so much fucking information, and all of it is crucially important. And so I need to consume all of it and like over plan everything before I do anything, because the stakes are so high, because there are so many things that are going to dramatically influence my results. So like I need to get all of my ducks in a row and have like a quote unquote optimal plan before I do anything. So I think that's one dynamic. The other one, there is a lot of tacit deriving alt from is, which there's this classic idea that if you observe something that is a fact, before you can determine what you like determining what you do with that information ultimately needs you to read values into it, right? A lot of like politics stuff falls under this umbrella, I guess, where we'll say like, like if you do this policy thing, it will increase the national debt by like $3 billion a year, or it will require taxes to go up by like 0.5% or whatever. And there's just that statement of like, hey, this is a thing that will happen if we do this thing, therefore we shouldn't do it. So that is taking the is, which is, hey, this will cost X amount of money, and deriving an ought from it, which is we ought not do it. But kind of the underlying assumption there is that like, hey, it could be any number of things, but it's like, hey, there are budgetary concerns, and if we spend this money, like that will be bad. That will have like other knock-on effects, and so like we shouldn't do it. Like, but those are kind of all of the reasons underpinning the policy prescription of we shouldn't do this thing because there are these things associated with it. But the is itself, like, hey, this will cost money, does not necessarily imply we shouldn't do this thing. Because someone could also argue like, well, but there will be social benefits to it and blah, blah, blah. So you can start with the same like basic information and draw two different conclusions from it based on what you care about and what you value.